Today we are going to be working on finishing touches for your animal faces, or any faces really. I will also show you how to do the details on this forest fairy that you can see here, freckles, eyes and the little snub nose. I'll go over that. And then the less is more details, such as just, you know, wisps of wool, how to get that effect without it looking all stripy and lumpy. And again, little details. We've got a mouse here, exactly the same. And we're going to be also making the heads to start with. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to make the heads. I'm going to show you a couple of techniques on getting a nice firm head without lots of felting involved, and how to get this beautiful, really lovely, thin, delicate lines on the mouth. Because I know when I first started needle felting, it looked like I'd drawn things on with a crayon, you know, or the thickest Sharpie I could find. And it does take some practice, but it's so worth it just to get this nice finished look. So let's get going. The first thing we're going to do is make a nice simple head shape. And most of my head shapes start off something like this, and then you can sort of build onto them. The first one I'm going to show you is one that I've used for a long time. I'm going to use wool top, not for any particular reason. But what I do find with a wool top is you can really pull quite tightly on it without it pulling apart. As you can see, you pull on the carded wool, it breaks easily because the fibres are shorter. So I'm going to go with the wool top today, but the carded wool is absolutely fine. Use carded wool for this one. So 2 techniques. We're going to do one by hand, and then we're going to do one around our trusty barbecue skewer. So if you haven't got a barbecue skewer, go and grab one if you can. If not, don't worry, you don't need one. So this, I've been using this for a few years, and it just reduces the need for a lot of felting, and also it stops you having those squishy faces. One of the problems that you find when you first start needle felting is that everything sort of seems to be quite soft, and until you learn how to really felt things up. Oh, hope you've all got your wool and your needles ready, and we can crack on. Okay, so wool top, just split down the middle, as you can see here, because we don't need that thickness, it'd be too chunky. So I've got a nice piece of wool top here, quick knot in the middle. There we go. Pull it nice and tight, you see, and then we're going to do a second knot. There we go. Can you see how firm that is? So we're not going to have to worry about the core of the head being nice and firm because we've already done it. And then you can do a third one depending on the size of the head. There we go. So as you can see, nice and firm. And then just flip that over. Smooth out that wool, and this is a Jacob wool I'm using, and I like to use Jacob because it's really coarse. I wouldn't use merino for anything like this. It's too fine, leaves lots of needle marks, but a Jacob or a Shetland works really nicely. And really push down really firmly, and then hold in place. Take your needle. Use finger guards if you need to. If I get the right needle, it might help. There we go. 38 needle. Don't worry about any needle marks. We'll get rid of those. And just a few pokes. Turn it round. And when you see what I'm doing, I'm moving that wool in with my fingers so we don't get the ends all loose and saggy. And can you see already how we've got that basic shape coming along there? And now start to go in diagonally. And then just pull it around again. And can you see we're using our needle, just draw it in. Don't worry about any lines, lumps and bumps, because what we can do is pop a top layer on once we've finished if we're not happy with it. We've got some wispy bits here, so just pull those quite tightly. And then just poke around diagonally. And that way it will reduce any needle marks. And then you'll work this for a little while, but don't overdo it. You can actually overfelt. If you overfelt, you know, for example, you felt in the same spot over and over and don't move your piece around, which is what you should be doing to get a nice even finish, you can actually break up the fibres so it actually starts to go soft again. I mean, you'd have to have been felting a while to do that, but it is absolutely a thing. You can overfelt. Now, can you see how we've already created a really simple head shape? And naturally you will get one end that is going to be bigger, but if you haven't and you want to narrow the end for where the nose area is going to be, then just go along and shape diagonally, again using that nice diagonal angle. And the reason this has been so quick to do and it's so firm is because we put those knots in. Super, super easy. And then to smooth it, you can just pop in the palm of your hand and smooth it over. Now, a lot of people say, how do you get rid of the wisps? Well, if you've got, you shouldn't have too many, but as you can see, you know, you've got these little wisps here. And when we've finished, we'll just go around with a pair of scissors flat to your piece, and that just removes all of those. But we won't do that until we're almost done. And also what you can do is you can actually squish it with your fingers. Wool is so malleable. There's so much you can do with it. You can flatten it, you can squash it. You know, if you want the back of the head to be a bit bigger, then you can squash that in. And there we go. We've got a really simple head shape. And then we can also do that on the barbecue skewer. Again, really, really easy. This time just go for something a little bit thinner than you used there. Pull that off. Twizzle that little bit if you want to. Just hold there and then just start to wrap around the skewer and keep your thumb and your finger in place to stop it becoming really long. Keep it tight. And that's why I like to use the wool top with this, because I don't have to worry about it breaking off. If you're using carded wool, make sure you keep your thumb and your finger really close and really tight, and then don't pull and tighten it until it's secure. And then just a few pokes with the needle, that's all it needs. That's it, just to hold it. And then continue. And then you can twizzle, but I find for this particular project that just wrapping around works better for me. Can you see how that's building up now? And again, wrapping it all the way around, and we've not really felted anything, so then just Smooth it, pop it in your hands, roll it around, and that's the start of our head shape. So here we go. We're going to now start to actually felt it so it holds its shape. And if you feel that, again, because you've pulled it really tightly, it's nice and firm right through to the core. The method, I'll just quickly show you, the method you may have been using is something like this, where you roll it up. And again, works perfectly well, but you've got to make sure it stays nice and firm. This takes a lot of the hard work out of it. And again, can you see how I'm just going along diagonally? And if you've got any problems, if you're on the live feed, just refresh the page. If it's frozen, then that will probably be something to do with your Wi-Fi. Mine's working okay here. But don't worry, it's on replay. So there we go. Can you see how that's coming along nicely now? And I can see here, I've got a narrow end, naturally I've got a narrow end here. So I'm going to keep that as the nose end. So I'm just going to felt that. A diagonal angle, maintaining that shape. Turn it around. Flatten the back, so I'm going straight in now at the back to widen it a little. And there we go. And then we pull it off the skewer. Make sure when you pull it off, you don't drag your hands along the skewer, just in case you get a splinter. So we've got a little hole there in the nose. So you can either just pull the wool over with your finger or tease it over with your needle, and that will disappear. And again, just some final pokes with the needle, just tidy that end. Now what you will find, especially if you're new to needle felting, is you may find you've got lots of lumps and bumps on it that you just can't seem to sort out. So what you can do is just take a layer, and you can use carded wool or wool top for this, and just wrap it around the area that you're unhappy with and just gently felt over, and that will cover up any bits you're not happy with. You see, and then you can just, oops, a bit slippery, roll it around and then felt it on. And you can always also do that with carded wool. Carded wool makes that really, really easy. So if you've got a nice firm layer of wool top, you could also just pop on a nice layer of carded wool just to tidy it up. But I'm happy with it, so I'm not going to bother doing that. So then what we want to do is we want to start adding the face details and the eyes and the eyebrows. So I've got one here that's also a little bit more felted. So what I'm going to show you now is, this is where people get quite stuck, because it's firm, it makes it much easier to add in the details for the face without distorting the shape. So that's why it's really important that the head, probably more than anything, really does need to be good and firm. So it needs to be firm but springs back. So what that means is when we start creating these details, we're not going to distort the shape. I'm going to show you how to do this. Now, you can go straight in with your black wool, and what you tend to start with when you're new is you tend to put a big load of wool on, and it ends up just looking like a really thick sort of crayon-like detail. And the trick with this is less is more, and then even less than that. So what I like to do is find the best place for your nose, and then create a V shape. You're going to draw a V shape just by poking in and out with your needle. It's just a very rough guide for you. You don't have to do this, but if you don't feel quite confident, and you can push quite far with that needle to show you where your line is going to go. Don't worry, my lines are never straight, but it is just a guide. So can you see? I'm going to try and bring that. I don't know if you can actually see there how I have just created this line here. You may not be able to see it on there, but you will be able to see it on yours. Just a few pokes with the needle, and because the head was nice and firm, we're not losing that shape. And then we want a line down here which is going to take us down to the mouth, just a short line. Go over those again. And there we go. So that's ready for us to start creating these nice lines for the shape. So take your contrasting wool. I'm going to use a black here so you can see it, but you could use a nice dark brown if you wanted something a bit more subtle. And when I talk about a wisp, I mean, this is it. Can you see? So thin. If it's a little thin, which that may be, you can twizzle it together to mat it together, and that will hold even more. So there you go. Now find that centre of the V, pop your wool on, and you want extra wool because when you poke the wool through, it will be taken through and into the head, so you will actually lose some of that length. Just poke in one place, and there you can see how much that has been taken in there. And then where you've got your line there, get your needle and just, can you see how that just disappeared? Poke in there, and then your other line, get it in position, and then just poke in with your needle, and you'll have some excess there. And then if it's kind of off kilter, just use your needle just to bring it in, and there you go. And then we're going to take another thin piece and roll it and mat it just to make it a little bit tighter if you wish. And hold along that line there. So it's a V. Well, it's like a Y. You've created a Y shape. So you've got a V, and then you've got this little sort of stalk attached, which you're actually creating a Y. So just poke into the centre of the V again with this. Down to where you want it to finish. Don't hold it tight though, because if you hold it tight here where this loose wool is, you'll actually end up pulling this in. You want this loose wool to be drawn in. You don't want this area here to be pulled through. And just go back and secure it. And there you go. So you can see. And then I'm just going to trim close but not too close the excess. And there you go. You can see. Now we've got this here, so we can actually use this. We can continue, bring that around, find where you want your sort of sheep's mouth to finish, and use that as a guide. It's a bit wonky at the moment, but don't worry about that. Leave that there. I would, well, I'm using for this, I'm using a 38 needle. You can use a 36, but when you're doing these delicate features, I would definitely go with a 38 or something even finer. That's a 40. So the higher the number, the finer the needle. And you see how much bend that has got on it compared to the 38. So I'll swap over, but I have been using the 38 without any problems at all, which just goes to show that you really don't need a lot of equipment. And this bit is fiddly, and what will happen is you will find that you're not happy with it. Just pull it out and start again. Rather than trying to make it right, start again. And this is something that I actually go back and practice myself, because it's quite easy to become out of practice. I did this last night, sort of in preparation for this, and it was it was much faster and easier, but that's not always the way. So there we go. I've got a little bit of a lump there with the mouth, so just above there. So I'm just going to rub that. And then we've got these wisps here. So I'm going to trim those off. And going back to my 38, because I want to do some sort of, I want to put some pressure on, and I don't want to do that with the 40 because it might break. If you want to just improve that definition, you can just use your needle, and then the mouth's a little bit off kilter, so I'm just going to pull down with the needle there. This side is slightly longer, so I'm going to poke that end in. And then I'm actually going to use my nail here just to make sure that both sides are pretty even. You'll never get them perfect. And there we go. I've got a little bit of black wool there, which looks like it's got a dirty nose. I'm just going to trim that off. And there we go. Our mouth is ready. And the reason I do the mouth first is because it's so easy for it to move around. So then once I've got the mouth on, I can decide on the position of the eyes. But I'm just going to go around, as I said before, scissors nice and flat. Be careful, just keep them just on the very top of the surface, and then you can just trim off any wisps. I wouldn't normally bother, but a lot of people do really, really like a nice, perfectly non-wispy, smooth finish. And that's easy to do with a little pair of scissors. So there you go. Now the next thing I'm going to do is position the eyes. You can sew them on because with the little glass beads, but for speed I'm not going to do that. I've got these, I didn't glue them in, these are on little stalks, so I'm just going to quickly show you. And don't have them too close together, but I'm just going to push that in there and hold it there so I can just make sure they're pretty similar. And then just poke them down. Now, if you find that your eyes are sitting proud of the face, then what I would suggest you do is where your eye is going to sit, just create a little sort of crater, a little cup, so you push that wool in. So now when your eye sits in it, it doesn't look like it's popping off the head. And just push that in. So can you see the difference? So if I take that one out, do the same again. Poke in the same area a few times to make a little sort of nest for the eye to go in. And then twizzle that round or sew it on. And there we go. The eyes are pretty much okay. And then what I also like to do on here, you can see I've popped some little eyebrows on, and it just gives it more definition. So take a really small piece of wool, 2 even pieces, and just roll them in your fingers just to mat them a little bit. And then lay in the palm of your hand and just roll backwards and forwards with your finger. You want the ends to stay nice and loose because we're sort of that's going to disappear into the face. A little bit more, I think. Quite firmly. Create a little sort of seed shape. And then pop that above the eye, and it will actually cover the eye. You may want to use your 40, your finer needle for this, because we're actually sitting on top of the face and we don't want any needle marks. And that will cover the eye, but don't worry about that. And then just this loose wool here, just sort of drag it along the face and behind the eye. And then you won't see any seams or joins. And then pull it back, and there you go. You see, you've got some nice shape and definition to the eye. Doing okay there. And then the same on the other eye again. Felt so it's nice and firm in the middle. Loose wool. And then just pop one end in. Bring that over like that. Felt the other end. Try and work at a diagonal angle as much as possible. So that we lose any sense of where it starts and ends. And there we go. We've got 2 eyes set in with nice definition. Now, if you're making something like the Herdwick sheep, for example, Herdwick have a little sort of tuft here, and that's really, really easy to make. Again, I use wool top for this because it's nice long fibres and you can create a really nice effect. So just pull apart and fold in half your wool. You can just felt along that fold just to hold it in place. Pop that just above the eyes. Using a 40 there, but no need. 38 is probably better. Again, 38 is something I use all the time. It's my sort of good all-rounder. 36, a bit more robust. So that's really good for, especially when you're flat felting and you want to felt things up a little bit more quickly. But I find a 38 does pretty much most jobs. So there you go. Can you see you've got this sort of smurf kind of effect going on here. Might just add a little bit more on there. just to thicken it up. You don't have to felt along that line. You can just plonk it straight on the head, felt it. And then just bring it forward, so wherever you've felted, you're not actually seeing where the needle's gone in. There we go. And then we're going to cut it all off. Keep any excess for any core wool for projects that you're using. You don't need to waste it. Just bringing that forward a little bit because I can see that line where I've felted. And then just trim along. So you end up with that really recognisable Herdwick tuft that a lot of them have. My favourite sheep, the Herdwick. I think the Herdwick was one of my first kits in 2014. Wow, yes, 2014. Herdy's been with me. I love the Lake District, so, you know, they're amazing. Beautiful animals. I think they graze up to something like 3,000 feet. Imagine that, climbing 3,000 feet for your supper. You've got to be really hungry. But they do call them the caretakers of the fells. So there we go. So that's just a little trick for adding the Herdwick tuft on. It's quite easy to do. So another thing that you can also do is if you, for example, we've got the mouse nose here and I've got a little bit of pink in there. Have I got pink? I've got some sort of fleshy colour carded wool here. Now you can pop that. I don't think you're going to be able to see this very well because it's really light in colour, but you can just gently felt that on. And I like to use carded wool for these little details because this is where you don't want any lines showing. So you're just creating an extra bit of detail in between those lines. There you go, as you can see. I'm going to take that out though because I'm not leaving that on there. And then as you can see here, this is a finished one. So we've got the eyes here, the mouth, and this lovely, I think this is Blueface Leicester. This is hand spun locks. And then for something like this fairy that we have here, I love freckles on these and these little tiny eyes, and then we've got this little snub nose. So I'm going to quickly show you how to make a circle because the faces on these forest fairies are quite round. So again, what I do is tie a knot. This is like a sort of light fleshy colour, eggshell I think it's called. Everything I'm using here is available in the shop. Accessories, tools, wool. And again, so I've tied a nice firm knot there, and this is wool top. Now I'm going to do this slightly differently. Hope I can get this right. So I'm just going to put one tail there. Now when you're making a circle, you kind of want to move it in different directions as you're turning. So I'm going to fold this up to here. I'm going to use my needle just to hold that. And then I'm going to pull that in, and then I'm going to turn and roll. Keep pulling that in, turning and rolling. And then that creates more of a ball shape. But I find this much easier to do on the barbecue skewer again. Pull that round and then pull this wool in. Firm and tight. Pull it over. It will look all sorts of shapes at the moment. Don't worry about that. And then this tail we've got here, this is going to neaten it up. So we're just going to spread that out a little bit. And the important thing is to pull in those sides when you're doing it. Push down, nice and firm, and then turn it. Keep going. But I do find this easier on a barbecue skewer. So if you've got a barbecue skewer, I've got a, there's a tutorial on my YouTube channel on making needle felted balls, and that's exactly what you do. You pull that around. And you can just keep turning just to smooth it. And then we're going to go in the ends and we're going to start flattening, because we definitely want a more rounded shape to this. And I always have trouble with this because I always think, oh, it always ends up looking lumpy. So this is why I usually use a top coat of carded wool to smooth it out. And then put it in your hand, give it a good roll. And you can see how that has affected that shape, but it's still quite loose. So I'm just going to keep it moving. Make sure, the important thing is you don't stay in the same place, you just keep it moving. And that will take you some time, and that's not finished. But what I'm going to do is I have some carded wool here in the same colour. And I'm just going to wrap that around, and you'll see straight away you've lost all those lumps and bumps. Just use your wool, bring it around. But again, I would advise, if you've got a barbecue skewer, I would do it on that. Same as we did with the sheep's face, but you're just aiming for a round shape. If you can hear some crunching in the background, I've given the dog a yak bar, her favourite thing in the world, apart from squirrels, to keep her quiet, but she's happily chomping away. So can you see how just adding that top layer of carded wool has covered up any lumps and bumps? And carded wool is great as a top layer like this as well, because you don't really get any needle marks. So there we go. Again, just quick roll, and then find sort of the spot which is the best sort of area for the front of the face. And I'm just going to quickly show you how to make these little snub noses. You can use carded wool. So again, barbecue skewer, very thin piece of carded wool or wool top. Just give it a twizzle. You can use a cocktail stick for this as well. In fact, I'm not going to use a carded wool, I'm going to use the wool top just because it's quicker and it doesn't break. There we go. I'm going to take a little bit of that off. So I use all types of wool. As you can see, I use wool tops, I use carded wool, I use silk fibres. Roll that around, nice and firm. You don't even really need to be doing any felting at this point. Okay, as we can see, and then just smooth it out with your fingers. Roll it around. A few pokes with the needle, leaving the ends loose, because they're the parts that we're going to attach to the face. Just so it holds really when we take it off, so it doesn't fall apart, and that's it. Again, carefully so you don't get a splinter. Pop off, and then we've got these loose ends. Pop in the centre of the face, felt in one side, so kind of tuck that under so it goes under the nose, and then come around and do the other side. You would do this with a little bit more finesse than I am, because obviously I'm conscious of time. But and it looks kind of as if it's just sort of been plonked on the face, which it has at the moment. And then just around. I'm a kind of no frills, no fuss felter. And I'm always about the quick wins and easy fixes to make it look like you've been doing it for quite a while. So as you can see, you might not be happy with that. So what you can then do is, again, take a really thin piece of carded wool and lay that over the top. And can you see how you've lost immediately all those lumps and bumps? Now here you may want to use a 40. So we don't want to lose the nose, but what we want to lose is all those unsightly seams. Pull those down, and you can see how that has done the job nicely. Now, eyes, again, for this, really simple. I'm going for a brown because I don't want them too harsh. I don't want it to look like something from the Village of the Damned. So a tiny piece of wool. Rolled in your fingers, and then just find your spot and poke it. Keep poking in the same spot, and all that wool will be pulled in. Don't try and go around and shape it. There, that's it, that's in. And then another piece, not too big. The dog's come for a drink now. If you hear the slurping, it's not me. Okay, there we go. And then I like to give them rosy cheeks, but I have a really easy way of doing that, because I find that if I try and put wool on, I tend to end up with lots of lines, and it doesn't look like blusher. It just looks kind of odd. So I've got this blusher here. I've got just a very fine, small paintbrush, and just rub that in there, and then use that on the face. It's quite light, this blusher, so I'll do it a couple of times. There we go. Can you see how you've created that lovely rosy cheek? And it looks perfect. So easy. Go to the other side. And then just stay in the same spot, move the brush around. And there we go. Lovely rosy cheeks. And then for freckles, my favourite tool is a brown Sharpie. And then you just plonk it in place, turn it. Look, how many do we need? Come down a bit. And like I said, I used brown because black I find is too harsh. So you've got those lovely rosy cheeks. And your freckles, which I think are super cute. I never bother with the mouth. I don't think you need it. I think when you start trying to put the mouth on, it ends up looking odd. Your brain will automatically put a mouth there, so it doesn't need a mouth. And then once she's got her hair on, I've got a little crown on here. She's absolutely stunning, and she looks gorgeous. This will be a new kit at some point. But there is, if you want to learn how to make the entire body for the fairy, then if you just go onto YouTube and if you look for the Fern of the Forest video tutorial, then you will you'll find out how to make the entire thing. So yeah, that's the fairy face. And then I just quickly want to show you how to add eyelashes, because I like eyelashes on some of my animals. And again, it's very similar to how we did the Herdwick, the fluffy Herdwick piece on the head. So you're just going to take a piece of dark contrasting wool, I've got black here, and pop it just behind the eye. Use your needle just to poke it in. Again, a 38 or a 40 is fine for this. Can you see that? So there we go. You can see that sticking up now. And then again, we just trim that. Not too short to start with. We'll trim it back. And then just move it around. And can you see a little bit long, so I'm going to trim again. If you want a really subtle effect, then go for a brown wool. And then if it's a bit thick, you can just sort of snip into the ends. So we've got I mean, it's a bit heavy on the eyebrows. It's a little bit Danny LaRue, but you get the idea. This works really well if you're making more life, you know, well, bigger pieces, and I've used it on hares as well before, which looks really nice. So there we go. It's a little bit of eyelash going on there. Take that out because it's looking a bit thick. Give it a blow. Bring that round. And there we go. Eyelashes. And then finally, for the subtlest of detail, sort of barely there, what I've done on this hair, I'm just going to pull it off. So I've used carded wool for this. Carded wool is perfect for this. There we go. Where's it gone? There we go. So if you use carded wool, I mean, barely there. literally, you know, you can see right through it. There's hardly anything there. And just lay it along the face, pulling bits off. And you're not really going to felt this. I mean, you're going to, I'm using a fine needle here, so this is a 40. You're just going to almost just tack it on, just so it holds. And again, it just adds that really, really fine detail. And the same here. So this is the parsley hair. Remember we worked on the legs the other week? And again, with carded wool, you get that lovely thin, wispy, natural looking finish. And you're almost just tapping with the very tip of your needle. So you've just got those delicate details. And again, if you want to watch the full video on how to make parsley hair here, that is also on YouTube. I think it's in 4 or 5 parts, so each body part is made separately. Again, all of it around a barbecue skewer, apart from the ears. So that was how I sort of wanted to show how much you can actually do with the barbecue skewer. So I think that is it. Thank you so much for joining me again for another techniques workshop. I'm just going to pop up here and so you can all see me and say a quick hello. Hi everyone. So I hope you enjoyed that. I got through it in an hour, which is pretty good. I'm going to change my glasses because I can't actually see anything in those. That's better. That's better. So I hope you got some really nice, useful tips from that tutorial. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. Don't worry if it popped in and out. It will just be the Wi-Fi. It's very windy today as well. It will all be there on the replay. So you'll be able to watch it at your leisure. That's the whole point, is that everything will be in the group for the replay, and I try and put it on YouTube as well. So I hope you got lots and lots of useful information from that. Learn how to get nice firm faces and to add those delicate details. Remember, less is more. You want the wispiest of wisps, and then a bit less than that when you're doing the nose and the face, and then you don't end up with that finish where it looks like it's been put on with a crayon. And it just takes practice, that's all. It took me a while, and it's something that, you know, even if you've been needle felting a while, I always go back and I practice these things because it does make a huge difference to the finished result. And those little sort of tips and techniques really give you a nice expert looking finish. So thank you for joining me on a Sunday afternoon, and I hope that you can all join me next week for the gorgeous Valentine gnome workshop. Don't forget the link for the kits and bundles if you need them, including the hoops, is up in the description. So hope to see you all next week. I'll be dropping in as always. I hope you're enjoying the group so far. I'm really enjoying it. I've changed the name, just called it the Felt Hub with Lincolnshire FENN Crafts, because that's what it is for me. It's a centre where we can learn about techniques and full workshops, everything, you know, that I've learnt about needle felting, and I'm sure you'll teach me a thing or two as well. So thanks all for joining, and I'll see you next week. Bye.